Today's Morphin Network video is sponsored by Ranger Stop and Pop, which is March 5th to the 7th, 2021 in Atlanta, Georgia, and Ranger Stock Convention, which is now November 11th to the 14th, 2021 in Orlando, Florida. Go to rangerstop.com for more info.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to a very special interview of Bruce Hopkins, a veteran voice actor of Power Rangers Ninja Storm, right known as Choobo from Power Rangers Ninja Storm, and all other voice works in the Power Ranger franchise. If you guys also Lord of the Rings fans, he actually played Gamling in Lord of the Rings. How you doing, Bruce?
I'm doing well, thank you. I've already apologized for Ryan, but I'm out having a walk with a friend. I completely didn't look at my diary and remind myself that I had this and should be sitting at home on my computer. So I apologize for the quality of the sound and everything.
Hey, Bruce, do you remember how to do Choobo's voice?
No, I think he was like a big, slow, kind of thick and not very intelligent guy.
I just wanted to say this was one of my favorite Choobo moments.
What do I do? How about away and self-destruct?
That was years ago we did that stuff.
Nice. So let's start the interview. So Bruce, can you tell us how you get started with acting?
I had been a professional dancer, a contemporary dancer for many years. And I was about to become a father. And so I decided I would stop dancing because when you're in dance companies, you tour around a lot. That's how dance companies generate income, essentially, is by being on tour and performing in theatres and everything. So that wasn't going to be very practical being a father. So I decided to stop dancing. And I got asked to be in a musical production, West Side Story. It was actually the first production of West Side Story in Australia or New Zealand for 30 years. And it was at the main theatre company in Auckland. So, you know, they wanted me as a dancer, essentially. So I did that season, and it was a really successful season. And then the director of the company he offered me a contract to be an actor. So essentially, I just fell into it. It wasn't real. I thought about, acting, but it wasn't fun. I certainly hadn't done any training or anything.
How did you get started with voice acting?
Once I left that theatre company, I was a full-time company member for a couple of years, and then I decided to start freelancing. And by this stage, I had 2 children, and I think maybe another one on the way. So, because I got 3 kids altogether. But you just got to keep income, coming in, and there's not a lot of work for actors. I'd say 97% of actors don't make a living out of acting. At least 97%. And so you always got to find other work. And I'm not sure what the first voice thing was, but it was essentially voicing advertisements. So I had an agent who, offered me a voiceover for an ad at some stage. So then what you do for your voice, it's much like a show reel for your acting. So you get a demo reel of your voice, and then you have an agent who uses that to try and put you forward for jobs when they have clients approach you.
It actually goes to my next question, Bruce. Can you tell us what the audition process was like for Power Rangers? Like how the audition process was like for Ninja Storm?
Just go into a studio. Again, your agent will give you a call. Sometimes you'd have to go in and do an audition. So that might get a few people in and get you to just do a few lines, and then you either hear that you got the job or not. If you got the job, you go in and you're just working with a director on that voice, and so that director wasn't usually the director who was maybe directing the episode. It was another director who would have been given notes and had a lot of instruction from the director of the episode, and that voice director would take you through your role. So you just go over it and and get it till they're satisfied with it. And then it's the same for the foley. You know what foley is?
No. What is it?
So foley is the background sounds, human background sounds, but also the footsteps and all that. But with the loop, you'd have a group called a loop group.
Oh.
So the loop group would be called, and I used to do quite a bit of the loop group as well. So to be scenes like the Power Rangers, when they're in their city gear, they go into a clothing shop. I think I remember one of them used to work in a shop where there was clothing and all that. So they would be having the scenes that they're shooting for that storyline. But meanwhile, two people, a couple might enter the shop, and you're not saying any dialogue out loud sort of thing, but you can see that they're talking to each other. Or you can see that one of them is really interested in an item of clothing. So you do the voice for those characters. Yes. And then they just, they bring that down really low volume so that in the background of that scene, you have the voices, the mumbling sort of voices of the people in the background. That's called loop group. I'll show you something. I'm just walking with my mate. There's my mate. Just around there. This is the butcher shop here. Here's the queue outside the butcher shop. And here's the queue outside the cafe over the road there.
Nice.
This is, we're on what's called level 3, Auckland City.
Nice.
We were on level 1. And then we started having, after 3 months, just over 3 months, with no community transmission of COVID. The only COVID cases in New Zealand were people who were in quarantine from people who have been citizens and residents who are returning back to New Zealand from overseas. And they've tested positive, a few of them, so they put them into quarantine. But as of 2 weeks ago, we suddenly had an outburst of probably a dozen or so community cases, and they've managed to track down where it all came from. But it's expanded to now about 100 cases. So we're now, Auckland City has been put back into what's called level 3 COVID lockdown. So you can't go into a cafe and things. You have to stand outside and order it. And if you want to go to, not all shops are allowed to open, but the shops that can open, you have to do what's called click and collect. So you order online, and then you go and you collect it. Once you get an email telling you, a text telling you that your goods are ready. So all of Auckland City is back on that level 3 lockdown. The rest of New Zealand is still on level 1, so they can still go and level 2. Sorry. But so it's an interesting time. How are you guys coping over there?
We're doing well. Well, I live in LA, so we're not. Well, we're basically back in lockdown. It's hard to get outside. And Kent?
I'm in Missouri, and the restrictions aren't as bad here, but yeah, it's still a difficult time nonetheless. What was your experience like while working on Power Rangers?
It was all cool. It was there wasn't a lot of pressure, and being in New Zealand, there's our union here, Actors New Zealand Equity, has like 1,000 members. So there's a reasonable number of people trying to be actors, but essentially, once you've been in the industry for a while, you kind of know a lot of people. You know each other. So like I say, in particular with the loop groups, we used to have a ball. Craig Parker, he played Haldare in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And So he would often be in the loop group and would digest Olin, etc. So we'd often have a lot of fun. It'd be usually be a three to four, maybe up to 5 hour session, and yeah, we'd have a lot of laughs. So it was pretty low key, really. It was nice. And like I say, helped by the fact that you kind of knew everyone anyway. Even when you were voicing a character, the guy who was directing us a lot was, we knew him, Jim McClarty.
What was the process in looking for the voice of Choobo?
Well, they, like I say, when you would go in for an audition, they have the character. They've already got the character there. They know what the character looks like. So they will take sometimes they've shot some scenes, so you're actually voicing to the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, we're just looking to try and match up the sound of the voice to the look of the character.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just whatever their interpretation. Of course, that's going to be open to whatever the director's interpretation of that character is. And you could probably take 5 different directors and they would have 5 different interpretations and choose different voices. I don't know. But yeah, it's just up to that person who's leading that episode, the vision of the characters and everything, to listen to what the voice sounds like and see if it matches what the character looks like.
Mm.
And of course, the tone of the character, whether they're like an ultimate baddie or whether they're like Choobo, who's a bit of a bumbling idiot, really.
I want to be home for my cartoons.
So I didn't get the question again.
No, I was quoting one of Choobo's lines. After you said he was a bit of a bumbling idiot. I want to be home in time for my cartoons.
Yeah, that's right, the bumbling idiot.
Sorry,
I'm
Brett.
just going to turn my camera around.
Oh, nice.
Can you see these 2 people down here?
Uh-huh.
This is my daughter and her partner.
Hi.
This is very cool. We're just down here having a sit down with a coffee. They're asking who I'm talking to. I know. I forgot that I had an appointment to talk to some people in America.
So we all know that you were part of Lord of the Rings, actually one of my favorite franchises of all time. Now, you were gambling. Can you tell us what was the audition process like for Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, I didn't, for that particular character, I didn't actually audition. I did a generic audition at the beginning of the process. They were auditioning for people who were under 5'6" and people who were sort of around 6 foot and above. And just basically, generic Urukai Hobbit characters, essentially. So I did one of those auditions, and then 9 months into the shooting, they decided they needed to create a new character. So they created this character, Gamling, because of those of you who are familiar with the books, you'll know Gamling's not really a character in the books. There's a character called Gamling the Old who's mentioned. He's a sort of retired commander, and he's an example of how they had to get sort of older men back in and young boys back in for the Battle of Helm's Deep. So 9 months in, they decide they need this new character, and to fight with King Theoden at Helm's Deep. So they create this character, Gamling, and just offered it to me. I just got a message from my agent one day saying, Lord of the Rings would like to know if you're available. So of course I was. And that's how it started, and it was only going to be a week of shooting, but they came to me after a couple of days and said they really liked what was going on with my character and the way I was portraying him and the way it was working with King Theoden, and they were going to put me in some more things. So they just kept doing it. They kept kind of building the character more and more, which I was very happy with.
Can you tell us the experience like while filming Lord of the Rings?
It was just a joyous time. Every second I was on set, or because they were filming most of my stuff was down Wellington and in the South Island, and it was just a joyous experience the whole time. Absolutely loved it. And it was incredible because you very quickly realised that they were making it up as they were going. You know, it was just so adaptable how they were shooting it. There were 5 different film crews throughout New Zealand, including some that were just 1 or 2 that were just in studios. The studios in Wellington were just corrugated sheds, big warehouses. New Zealand didn't have any studios at that time. So I'm walking up a hill.
Anyway, so we have 2 more questions, Bruce. So my next question is: do you have any advice to any aspiring actor or actress that wants to be in the acting field?
You just get there's so much. The technology has evolved so much, so you can do your own stuff now. So much more. So if you have other friends or acquaintances who are into it as well, then get together and make your own material just to practice. Looking at what you look like on screen. If screen's what you want to do, stage is different, and same with that. Go and volunteer at the local theatre company and just help backstage or get familiar with with the environment. And like I say, for kind of film stuff and everything, just start playing around with your phone camera, start creating little scenes and shooting them, and then look at them, analyze them yourself. Go, oh right, oh, I see why they cut into close-ups, or I see the difference between my face when my face is in a long shot and my face is in a close-up. I remember one scene in Lord of the Rings. I'm with Aomer, played by Carl Urban, and we're on horseback, and we're talking to all the Rohirrim as we're about to leave Edoras to go to Helm's Deep. And I'm just in behind Carl. He's doing this big speech or making an announcement to the gathered masses. And I went and I looked at the rushes, things called the rushes. The next day, I got to a point where it was really cool. I was allowed to go in where Jackson would be looking at the shots that they got the previous day, the ones that they want to keep, and they'd just be starting to put it together a little bit. So I got to go and see this particular day, and I saw my character, and I'm on the horse there, and it's a really sort of intense, it's all serious and everything. And then at one point I blinked, and just that blink made me, looking at myself, go, oh no. So it's that sort of awareness that if you are working on a film or film set, have the courage, to say, to approach the director and ask, what's the shot? Where am I? What size shot is it? Like, if it's a close-up, when you blink, that blink is going to stand out. If it's a long shot and you blink, doesn't matter. So it's all that sort of stuff, just play around and everything, and then also, as I say, just to look online, get a hold of any local groups that might be doing what it is that you want to be doing, and and volunteer to work with them in the theatres or on the crew or whatever, just to get familiar with the industry. Because acting is completely sort of random in a way. Like it's as much the people who get the break are not necessarily the best actors, but they have just the right look at the right time on a particular job.
Mhm.
And if that job succeeds, then their names get suddenly they're up in lights.
Right.
And there's probably many of the world's best actors we've never seen because they never got the break.
Right.
So Bruce, you have one more question for you. So we do some like 2 quick fan questions. So Ken, go ask the final question.
Is there any upcoming projects you'd like to share?
No, I've actually got my own small temp employment agency. I find non-acting work for actors to do between acting jobs. So I started that a number of years ago, and we won a big contract about a year and a half ago. So I basically concentrate on running my company now. But I am actually, the reason I have a beard again is I was cast in just 4 days shooting in a local series called Brokenwood Mysteries. It's New Zealand's most successful TV series in the world, like being sold around the world. Now in its 7th, they're about to be 7th series, and so I was cast in that, but it's all been put on hold with the COVID lockdown level getting changed. But I still hang out, acting is a drug. I still love it. I absolutely love it when I'm doing it.
So Bruce, there are some fans that want to say hi to you before we go. So are you ready to say hi to some of them?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Awesome. So there's a question from, let's see. Thomas Franco says, "Hello, Bruce."
Hello, Bruce. Yo.
And then Callie Rose Swenson says, "Who else did you voice?"
I don't know. I'm pretty sure I did either 2 or 3. I can't remember who the other ones were. Choobo seems to be the one that sort of stuck in people's minds. I'm just saying goodbye to my mate. Who's my mate's not good for a walk with. I've been ignoring him. He'll wave to you.
Hi.
He's taking a photo.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So and then Paratimish Mashakur, sorry, what's your name? Do you prefer cricket or football?
I was a rugby player. I was on my way to I captained the representative team down in the South Island where I went to university, and I was sort of on my way to trying to make the next level of representative rugby and everything when I saw a professional dance company rehearsing. Purely by chance, I just happened to go through Wellington City, and they had a professional dance company, and I saw them rehearsing, and I was absolutely smitten. So I left. At the time, I was a commercial fisherman and playing rugby, and 22 years old, and I decided I wanted to be a dancer. So I set about becoming a dancer, and within a year, I managed to get myself into that professional company in Wellington. So I then was a professional dancer for 8 years following that in Australia and New Zealand. So it's the journey just unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do a few more. Edward Sanchez says, "Oh my God, it's Choobo." Then Paratimish, if you can say, "Finally, I am," in your Choobo voice, you still remember it. "Finally, I am revived." Ha 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 ha.
I am revived.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for the special interview, and Bruce, thank you so much for being our guest and showing us around New Zealand.
Cool. Yeah. So you met my daughter. You met my best mate.
So before we leave, Bruce, where can you find you in social media?
I've got a number. I've actually got a. Actually, I'd love it if you were into checking out my latest YouTube channel. It's called Taking the Long Way Home. I have a YouTube channel, Bruce Hopkins, I think, and should link you through there probably. But I walked the 3,000 kilometre Te Aroha Trail, the length of New Zealand, 2 years ago. I carried some of my father and brother's ashes. I returned them home to the little island off the southern tip of New Zealand. There's an island called Rakiura, Stewart Island, and that's where I'm from originally. But my parents we moved way up north, and when I was a crayfisherman, I used to crayfish with my father and brother off the most northern point of New Zealand, Cape Reinga. And so when I heard about this trail, which I only started in 2011, I wasn't a tramper, but I trained for 10 months, and I thought if I can walk the length of New Zealand, that will be my ultimate expression of gratitude for being blessed to be born in these remote South Pacific islands. So, and then I realized I could carry some of my father and brother's ashes with me and walk them back home to the island. So that's what I did. And so I've just started putting, I did a podcast series, New Zealand Radio New Zealand, which is New Zealand's public broadcast channel. They hosted a podcast series of my whole journey, which lasted 5.5 months of tramping.
Oh, nice.
And so now I've just started putting up each week. I tend to put up a 6, 7, 8 minute video, really shitty handheld GoPro footage and phone footage that I took during my walk. So I've started posting that up. So I'd love it if you were into going and having a look at that stuff. And then also, just Facebook, my standard Facebook page. Twitter is at Bruce Hop. At Bruce Hop, one word. That's kind of. I've got an Instagram account which I can't remember. I get very slack. Sometimes I post them and sometimes I don't.
Yes. And can I find you in social media?
Find me on Instagram, brown_K and QR Ranger Book.
Yes. You can find me on Instagram, DanceUpWith247. Please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and Morphin Network. Thanks again, Bruce.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And Mike, once again, my apologies for not looking at my diary. I looked at it yesterday. I remember looking at it yesterday going, oh, cool, I've got that chat tomorrow morning. So instead it turned out to be a roaming phone chat, and with me completely ignoring my mate.
No worries, Bruce. Hopefully in the future we can do something really special, and then we have you back. But again, thank you again, Bruce. And this is Morphin Network. Bye, guys.
Cheers, man. See ya.